I moved to Seattle on July 1st, 1993, and a week later Mia Zapata was killed. So my experience in Seattle as a musician was launched into a community that was in mourning, and I would say that that was kind of a scary way to enter into the music scene.
I moved there in August of '89. It was a vibrant punk scene in the late '80s. There were no jobs. It was the end of the last recession, and I remember thinking, God, I applied at a hot dog stand and I can't get a job here. And I had a college degree. The band started in college, the Gits, and after two of us graduated and two of us quit school, we moved to Seattle to play music. We needed to find a gig, and there were only two places to play in the early '90s. One was the Vogue, maybe three, and one was the Central.
When I finally got connected with Sally Johnson and Mike Cattell and we started Faster Tiger, I found a pretty supportive community of musicians. There were other female drummers who were active and really supportive of one another.
Well, when I thought of women in bands, I hadn't really thought of them as like a separate thing or like an oppressed people in the community or something, or in a band. And but I did recognize that fellow drummers who were women would put up with a lot of things that I didn't have to.
I was raised with a drummer for a father and had a lot of just kind of confidence in my musicality and my ability to just connect with other people around music. But the thing is that when you're a woman drummer, audiences respond to you in a certain way differently than, the community was supportive, the other musicians I played with were supportive, but people in the audience would make me feel more like an object, I think. You're really good for a girl. No, actually, I'm just really good.
No one would say, hey, you're pretty good for a boy. You're a pretty good player for a blonde person.
Are they even hearing what I'm playing, or are they just sort of seeing me as an anomaly on stage?
There were some bands that also during that time were created by the industry, essentially. When we got to go to Europe with the Gits in '91, they would just put band from Seattle on the posters and the place would sell out. And we weren't even really affiliated with the grunge bands from Seattle because we were a punk band, and the quote grunge bands didn't really include women at that point. There wasn't a single band on that Sub Pop 100 and compilation that had women in it, except for the one band that had all women in it, and were called Dickless, to highlight the fact that they had different genitalia.
I was in my early 20s, and so I was also just getting used to myself as a woman and getting used to what it meant to be not just experiencing playing music, but being seen performing the music and being judged based on whatever people, they see you playing and they're like, how old is she? Is she straight? Is she gay? Why is she playing drums? Can I sleep with her? Sexuality and being desired is just part of being in rock music, whether it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, but the power differential it's different. So if you're a man and you're up there and everybody wants to sleep with you, you still have the power.
Some people, and I've heard quoted we got to have a chick in the band because then, get her on keyboards or tambourine or something, then more people come to our shows, and that's just utterly incongruous with the idea of punk or independent music or any kind of indie art. The focus is not popularity or how it appears to people and how many people you can get to show up. It's more about playing music for music's sake and for friendship's sake.
People would just assume that I was in an all-girl band always. That was another thing that occurs to me, that it would be a surprise to people that there would be a guy in our band. So then, and that was nice because we were a trio, so there were, the ratio was flipped, I think. But things were starting to change in the music scene. There was, Seattle, there was, Riot Girl stuff going on in the, Olympia, and the idea that women were getting together to make music. And in this case, we were not just women, we were mixing it up. And so I would take offense at that too. Not, I mean, I've been in lots of all-women bands. I've loved it, but it's just it's those assumptions that people just carry in, and if they know that I'm in a band, they never guess that I'm the drummer ever.
I found that as a drummer, you were busy working this four-dimensional sort of machine at the same time, trying to communicate a song while listening to the other musicians, and you have to choose very carefully who you're allowing to be your spokesperson, or who you're going to accompany, or what music are you going to play.
I have had the experience of playing with men and women, and I've had really positive experiences with playing with men and women, but I've also had some experiences of playing with men who did not listen at all, and who just got on their guitar and just wanked and never even looked at me.
People have a perception that scene was huge, and there were like 5 or thousands of people at these shows, and we're talking about venues that held 100 people or less. We're talking about like very, very small scene that somehow gained some kind of international recognition because of a couple of bands that made millions of dollars, while the vast majority of musicians just were playing for music's sake, I think.
Yeah.